Hello everyone, welcome back. This one is the second video related to the 12th chapter of history from Integrated Social Science, Ratna Sagar, Class 6, Culture and Science in the Ancient Period. In the previous module and the video series, I have discussed about the literature in the ancient period, in which we discussed about the Vedas and the associated text to Vedas, basically the Brahmanas, the Puranas, the Upanishads. And we discussed about the two epics, the two great epics, that is the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. We also discussed about the secular literature that includes the works of court poets, the works of Kalidas, the works of Banbhat, and we have also discussed the accounts of foreign travelers, basically the advent of Chinese pilgrims and travelers to India during certain period, in certain period, and their motive behind uh, their visit to India, Yunsang, icing and fine. And we also discussed about the works of the two basically literary sources of Mauryas, that is the Indica by Megasthenes, the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator, who lived in the court of Chandragupta Maurya, and the other work is the Arthashastra by Kautilya, or Chanakya or Vishnugupta, who was also there in the court of Chandragupta Maurya as a minister. In this particular video, we'll be discussing about the art and architecture. If I talk about architecture, so architecture includes a large number of stupas, chaityas, viharas, temples. Okay, and when I talk about art, it includes the sculpture and painting that was somehow prevalent during the ancient India. Okay, so without wasting a moment, without any further ado, let us turn on to the next slide and let us start the topic. The very first one is the stupa. So, during the Mauryas, uh, as we have learned that the Mauryas made a remarkable contribution, and they somehow contributed to art and architecture also. And the Mauryan art can be studied under pillars and sculptures. We have heard about the edicts and all, the stupas, the caves, the palaces. Okay, so during ancient India, many stupas were built. So, what a stupa is? A stupa is a solid dome structure. You can see here this is a dome structure. Okay, you might have seen this type of structures on mosques. Okay, so this is a dome. A stupa is a solid dome structure of brick or stone resting on a round base. Okay, you can see here also the base is round. Here also the base is round. Okay, it is resting on the top of a round base. The main purpose of building a stupa was to enshrine some relics of Buddha or some great Buddhist monks. Relics basically means the remains. Okay, so stupa, the main purpose of building a stupa was to enshrine some remains of Buddha or some great Buddhist monk. And according to Buddhist tradition, Ashoka constructed 84,000 stupas, and the most famous example of a stupa is that of Sanchi. Okay, is that of Sanchi near Bhopal, which has a diameter of 121.5 feet and a height of 77.5 feet. The original brick stupa was not as big as it is in the present form. Some other examples of a stupa are the Dhamek stupa at Sarnath. Okay, and another magnificent stupa at Amravati in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, and the stupa at Bharut, okay, is also famous. Bharut is basically a village located in the Satna district of Madhya Pradesh. All these stupas were somehow built during the reign of Ashoka. Okay, whether it is the Sachi stupa at Sarnath, the Sachi stupa, okay, the Dhamek stupa at Sarnath, or the Bharut stupa, or the stupa at Amravati. All these stupas were built during the rule of Ashoka, and the all these stupas were surrounded with railings and had many gateways, and the railings and gateways were decorated with sculptures depicting events from the life of Buddha. Turning on to the next slide, let us discuss the Chaitya. So not only the chaityas, the viharas also. Okay, this is the vihara and the chaitya. So these two common structures were the temple, okay, which were basically called the chaitya, and the monastery, which was called the vihara. So the chaitya was a large hall with a number of columns, and the vihara consisted of a central hall. Okay, a vihara consisted of a central hall entered by a doorway from a veranda in front. Okay, when I talk about uh, the chaitya, so the most famous chaitya is that of Karle, okay, which is there in western Deccan near Pune. Okay, and it is about 40 meters long. Okay, it is about 40 meters long, 15 meters wide, 15-meter wide, and 15 meters high. Okay, and it is the most impressive specimen of massive rock architecture. Coming on to the monasteries or the viharas, so the viharas were basically the places where the Buddhist monks lived. Okay, and some monasteries were in form of huge caves. You can see here it is huge caves cut into hills, and they were decorated with sculptures. Okay, they were decorated with sculptures. The viharas or monasteries were excavated near the chaityas for the residence of monks in the rainy season. And at Nasik, there are three viharas. The most important of these monuments are the stupas distributed over an area of 125 kilometer all around Ellora. And the most famous of them are Amravati and Nagarjun Konda. The Amravati Stupa, also, which I discussed earlier, it began in about 200 BC but was completely reconstructed in the second half of the second century Common Era, and its dome is 53 meters across the base, and it seems to have been 33 meters in height. And the Amravati Stupa is full of sculpture which depict the various scenes, life of Buddha. Turning on to the next specimen of architecture, that is the temples. So many temples were also built. The cave temple at Ajanta, the cave temple at Ajanta are very famous. The Dash Avatara temple at Devgarh near Jhansi, the temple of Bhitargaon in Kanpur, and the temple at Sachi are very beautiful. Okay, so the cave temples at Ajanta, the Dashavatara temple at Devgarh near Jhansi, the temple at Bhitargaon, and the temple at Sachi are very beautiful, and they were constructed of brick and stone, and turning on to the kingdoms of south were also famous for temples. Okay, the kingdoms of south were also famous for temples. The Chalukyas built the stone temple dedicated to Vishnu and Shiva at Vatapi, Aihole, and Pattadakal. On the other hand, the Pallavas built the Rath temple and the Shore temple at Mahabalipuram and the Kailash Nath temple at Kanchi. And the Chalukyas not only built the temples, they also built many Buddhist monasteries as well. And most of the temples that were constructed during the ancient period were having some common structures as well. Okay, and the common structures were Garbhagriha, okay, Shikhar, or you can also call it Vimana, and Mandap. So these three were the common structures of temple. Garbhagriha was the room where the image of the chief deity was kept. You must be wondering why I am showing you these two temples, because the first temple somehow belongs to the northern style and the second image belongs to the southern style temple. Okay, but the structures were somehow common. The Garbhagriha was the room where the chief deity was kept. Okay, and Shikhar or Viman, Shikhar, or we can call it Viman also. So this was a tower on the top of the Garbhagriha, and this tower basically marked uh, that it is a there is a sacred place below that particular uh, tower. Okay, so it was a tower on the top of the Garbhagriha to mark it out as a sacred place. Turning on to Mandapa. So Mandapa was an assembly hall where people assembled and prayed. Okay, so these were the common structures of temple. Turning on to the next slide, we have almost covered the architecture part, in which we discussed about the stupas, the dome-shaped structures, the chaityas, okay, and the viharas or monasteries where Buddhist monks lived, and the temples built by the Pallavas and the Chalukyas, and also the ancient temples at Ajanta, Devgarh, the Savtara temple, and the Bhitargaon temple. Turning on to the art includes the sculpture and the paintings. Okay, the sculpture and the paintings. So sculpture, talking about sculpture. So when we were reading the Indus Valley civilization, also we have seen there people making deep sculpted objects, isn't it? They were, however, very crude, but then also they were made by the people. As you can see here, these are the images of the sculptures that were built during the Indus Valley civilization, the people of Indus Valley civilization. During Mauryan rule, numerous stone pillars were constructed. You may have we you can I think you can remember, you can connect itself this to the Mauryan Empire, where we discussed about Ashoka, that to propagate Buddhism he somehow uh, built edicts or pillars at public places for the people to read. Okay, so during Mauryan Empire also, numerous stone pillars were constructed, and these pillars were carved out of rock which had a metal-like polish. And some of them had animals carved on the top. The lion capital uh, from the pillar at Sarnath is very beautiful. This is the lion capital. And the art of sculpture developed further with the growth of two schools of art, that is the Gandhara art and the Mathura school of art. So talking about the Gandhar art, so the home of Gandhar school of art is the territory in and around Peshawar in northwestern India, And the best of the Gandhar sculpture were produced during the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. It originated during the reign of Indo-Greek rulers, but the real patrons of this school of art were the Shakas and the Kushans, particularly Kanishka. And Gandhar art was a blend of Indian and Greco-Roman style. Okay, the Kushan Empire brought together masons and other artisans trained in different schools and countries. Indian craftsmen came into contact with the Greeks and the Romans, especially in the northwestern frontier of India in Gandhar, and this gave rise to a new kind of art in which images of Buddha were made. In the Gandhara school of art, the hair of Buddha was fashioned in the Greco Roman style. In the Gandhara school of art, the hair of Buddha was fashioned in a Greco Roman style, and they were basically executed in black stones. Uh, the example of Gandhar art, we have already discussed about this in one of the classes. The Bamyan Buddha of Afghanistan is an example of the Gandhar art. And the Gandhar school made sculpture of Buddha in various sizes, shapes, and postures. Okay, as you can see here the Buddha is in sitting posture, and here is standing posture. Okay, and the size, you can see that the difference. There is a lot of difference between the sizes also of the Buddha sculpture, and the relief depict the Buddha's birth, his renunciation, and his preaching as well. And images of Buddha of this school of art are gentle, graceful, and compassionate. And the influence of the Gandhar art also spread to Mathura. Although it was primarily a center of indigenous art, Mathura produced beautiful images of Buddha, but it is also famous for the headless erect statue of Kanishka as well, whose name is inscribed on its lower part. You can see here. This one is the image. Okay, headless erect statue of Kanishka. It is also very much famous. This school of art flourished in the first century AD, and in its earlier phase of Buddhism, which was largely absent in Gandhar school, the Mathura school of art. The Mathura school also carved out the images of Shiva and Vishnu also, and along with their consorts Parvati and Lakshmi as well. And uh, the artists of Mathura spotted used the spotted red sandstone for making images. Okay, and the image exhibited not only masculinity and energetic body, but also grace and religious beliefs. And before development of this school, Buddha was never depicted in a human form art of Sachi, Barhut or Gaya. And Buddha was represented only as symbols, mainly two footprints or a wheel. And artisans from Mathura initially continued to depict symbols, but gradually the human image of Buddha appeared independent of other schools of art. Okay, and you can see here there is uh, a halo also. Okay, the circle behind uh, here in this particular image, the halo. So the halo somehow signifies the spiritual strength, okay, of Buddha. And one of the finest specimen of statue of Buddha is the seated Buddha at Sarnath. You can see here the seated Buddha at Sarnath is one of the finest examples. Okay, the Buddhist monasteries of the Gupta period contain beautiful stone sculptures as well, and seated Buddha is one of the example of the finest example of the sculpture, the stone sculpture. Turning on to the Pallavas and the Chalukyas were also the patrons of sculpture, The Mahabalipuram has many sculptures carved out on rocks. The most famous is the descendant of Ganga. You can see here the descendant of Ganges. Okay, and it is also called Arjuna's penance. So this Arjuna's penance, the descendants of Ganges, or also known as Arjuna's penance, are portrayed in stone at the Pallava heritage site, and this was basically built under the reign of Pallava king Mahendra Varman. Okay, so the legend depicted in the relief is the story of the descent of sacred river Ganga to earth from the heavens led by Bhagirathi. Okay, and the waters of Ganga are believed to possess supernatural powers. So the descent of Ganga and Arjuna's penance are portrayed in the stone at the Pallava heritage site, and the relief is more of a canvas of Indian rock cut sculpture at its best, not seen anywhere in India. It is also one of the group of monuments at Mamalapuram that were designated as UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1984. Turning on to the next part of art, that is the painting. The history of painting in India goes back to the old Stone Age, isn't it? We have discussed about the paintings in the Bhimbetka caves. Okay, the first picture is depicting the a painting of the Bhimbetka caves. Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh is famous for the prehistoric rock paintings, and the paintings basically depict scenes from everyday life of men hunting, riding, dancing, performing religious rituals, of women grinding and preparing food, of children running, jumping, playing, and a large number of animals have also been painted, most of them in great detail. The colors used in the paintings are red, green, white, and ochre, and the paints were perhaps made by grinding various rocks and minerals till they became powder, and they were then mixed with water and some sticky substance such as resin from the trees. Okay, turning on to the other paintings also. During the Gupta period, the walls of the cave monasteries at Ajanta were decorated with beautiful paintings. So the cave monasteries of Ajanta were decorated with beautiful paintings. These beautiful paintings are called murals, and these paintings depict the events from the life of Buddha. Okay, and colors were made from natural materials, and that is why these paintings have retained their glow even after so many centuries. And every year thousands of people come to see these paintings, and they marvel at the skill of the artists who created such masterpieces. So this is all for today. In this particular video we have discussed about the architecture and the art, basically the sculpture and painting, and the stupas, the caves, the chaityas, the viharas, the temples, and the common structures of temples. With this, I come to an end to this video, and in the next video, we'll be discussing about the developments in science, medicine, and astronomy that happened during ancient India. With this, I call it a day. Do read the topics first and then watch the video. Thank you.